Deep within a bleak and dismal swamp, hidden beneath its murky waters, lies the headquarters of the most depraved otakus of all time. The Legion of Anime Addicts.
What is up, the Aspie Anime Addict here, a Legion of... Oh god, this is a mouthful. What is up, the Aspie Anime Addict here again, leader of the Legion of Anime Addicts, and we got ourselves some guests over here that specifically BioGundam and Lonely Critic had over here with us, but sadly, due to whole time restraints that I was having with my work and other people, they couldn't really make it, though... Well, more like I really had to cut them off for a little bit, but it's these guys that you should thank for this great momentous occasion that we had. Though I wish these guys were a fine source of villainy right here, but let's take a look at the people that we have over here. First, we have RogerSmith, who has his own little YouTube channel. Is your username really just Roger? Or
RogerSmith2004.
Okay, then that's... Well, at least you're honest with yourself, or you just have a weird name out of it. But then the next one... Oh my god, I just made this great joke out of this whole idea. He may be a cold cyanide pill, but he melts my heart, Cyanide Blizzard, with his own little, easygoing, channel. Was it called Cyanide Blizzard as well, or is it just a different name?
It is called Cyanide Blizzard, and I do a little project called First Impressions, which was the inspiration that Chibi used. He came to me, he was like, I need help. I said, just be yourself, and he was like, thank you. I said, no. Think yourself.
And the last one of the day, though, not the one that will hinder us with all this stuff, is Pause and Select. Hopefully this time not drunk. And yes, due to the whole issue that we were having with scheduling, we had a recording, but Pause was a little bit too drunk. So hope you're not drinking and pausing right now.
Yeah, I'm completely sober this time, unfortunately.
You're just drinking some coffee, is that right?
Yep.
So with all of you guys over here, with this huge momentous occasion that we have over here, apparently, from what I heard, you, Pause, you had this whole thing where, you had, Cyanide, Roger, and yourself talk about stuff, but supposedly you didn't have time and you didn't have enough viewership. Is that right?
It was mainly sort of time, because the weekly watch was actually a lot of fun. We got some viewership on some of the videos relative to the sub count at the time, but the sort of process itself wasn't really conducive to the content type that the channel was sort of working towards, and it sort of just died out, really. The videos always kept losing subs, and we always kept running into copyright strikes and copyright claims on a lot of the content, and so it sort of ended up being the situation where it didn't really help the channel in really any particular way. It was a lot of fun, but it really didn't help the channel in any particular way, so it kind of just died, and I kind of just ended up killing the podcast, if you will.
It helped me.
That's a big shame. Though I hope if there's any viewers that are watching this are going to be getting a nostalgia rush of all this stuff. But for the topic that I wanted to talk about is about analytical reviewing and that kind of thing, since mostly just specifically just with Pause over here, it just made me think of just Pause, Roger, though Cyanide, you're a little bit more of a casual or whatever. You also wanted to talk about this certain thing that I wanted to mention about analytical reviewing and certain channels and such. Mostly from watching your stuff, supposedly Roger and Pause, Cyanide, sadly, I have the only things I probably watched from you were probably some first impressions, and also the clip that you showed me from Ange Verge that you had, which was really funny. Mostly the concept of analytical reviewing, I just had this very weird, it's very hard for me to grasp, mostly just of how analytical people like yourself usually come up with points to make, some analysis, and just how you edit, and also sometimes, most of all, it's mostly just how you word things, degradable or any other words there on the top of my head, I don't really know, or some of the words that you then bring up, I just have this issue, because I don't know, just the way that how analytical reviewers use their words, for ones that I can't even mention, which kind of shows that I just have a hard time grasping with stuff, and I was wondering if if people want to be like coming up or want to be analytical reviewers, like maybe next like Mother's Basement or maybe another Roger or maybe another you or whatever, would people have to follow a certain like guideline involving where you would have to like have drawn out videos and have this very articulate vocabulary involved with it?
So you don't have to have an articulate vocabulary to do effective analysis. So, because I think the term articulate vocabulary has a particular connotation to it, which I think is not really conducive to the art of analysis itself. When people think of an articulate vocabulary, people think, well, you know, the person is trying to look smart, or they're trying to make something simple seem very complex, and so on and so forth. And that's a very legitimate concern. That does happen a lot. That sort of, I guess you could say, the sort of flaunting that happens a lot. So I don't think an articulate vocabulary is necessary, but there is a very important distinction between an articulate vocabulary and sort of a shorthanded vocabulary, particularly when you're talking about very complex ideas. If you're going to talk about very complex ideas, especially ideas that essentially have been written about with tomes of books and articles and so on and so forth, to sort of condense it into a digestible format for a larger audience, you have to use shorthands. You really do. There's really no other option. And so some people sometimes, when they see or when they hear a particular video, this happens a lot for me, so I'm just going to be using my experiences. But when someone looks at a video and then they say, well, you know, Joe's just using all these big words because he's trying to sound smarter, he's trying to sound fancy. Well, not necessarily. I mean, like, perhaps on some sort of subconscious level, I might be trying to do that or something. I don't know. I don't really know my subconscious that well. But essentially, these words have a shorthand to them. They don't exist within a vacuum. They exist within the sort of collective understanding of what sort of gravity is associated with that word. And so, therefore, when I'm using a sentence that might at the onset seem very complex or very dense or very sort of abstruse, it's not because I'm trying to sort of trick people or confuse people or anything. It's because I think that these words have a connotation that I want to bring with it. And I think that's absolutely essential if you want to get into a sort of more rigorous analysis of anime or manga. So no, I don't think you need to have an articulate vocabulary, but you do have to be aware of the power that particular words have.
Okay, I think just from the first like 3 sentences that you had like a bunch of words that I just thought was a little bit too or of whatever you said. But yeah, I could probably agree with that term. It's just, maybe it's just due to the whole, yes, I agree, it's a very subjective thing. I admit that my whole viewpoint on it is very subjective, and watching both you and Roger's types of content, because me as an Aspie, like, I've developed my own way of like words to use or specific definitions. Like, even though there's so many words to use for certain stuff, I'll try to use the simplest word for me, or the words that I used the most out of them. Like, I remember a bunch of PBS programs I would used to watch where like they would like tell these fancy words like cumbersome or coordinated and that type of stuff. Sure, they're not really that like over the top words since it was for kids and that type of stuff, but I grew up hearing those words, and I was just there. And then how I make my videos is that I would try to use the simplest wording possible to like not try to sound like too smart, but try to like feel like a little bit more passionate or like straight to the point, like, but not to the point of being idiotic as in like Donald Trump, Jesus Christ. But is there anyone else? Like, what about you, Blizzard? What do you think?
Well, you know, that actually brings a good question that I would pose to Pause and Select, a counter, if you will. You know, I do believe that there's a lot of things that can be dumbed down, but that begs the question of how far do you go towards the dumbing of the process before you almost dilute or even change the terminology, especially when you get into the academic field. How far can you go, in your personal opinion?
Well, in that situation, it really boils down to what is your intended audience. At least that's what I believe. Essentially, whom are you speaking to? And what are you trying to say? Dumbing down, I think, is sort of a problematic term, particularly because it's pretty much a lose-lose kind of term. If you don't dumb it down, then people will say, well, you're obfuscating. But if you do dumb it down, people might say, oh, you might be condescending. I think all we can do, because I don't have a magic bullet for this, it's constantly in flux, it's constantly being discussed. I think all we really can do is just try and make it as clear as we can for the argument that we've marshaled forwards. And perhaps what I've said is a platitude, but it's really all I can say.
Definitely an understandable situation, as I know in your most recent video, ReZero, that anime snob brought to attention, and people decided to let you know how pretentious you were and how poorly explained some of your research material was. As a content creator, obviously that's not something anybody enjoys hearing, and it can be useful to a degree in feedback, but in an aspect like that, and your general approach, can you actually change that? Can you be less, quote-unquote, pretentious?
Well, I have a sort of belief in that there really is there's no value to the word pretentious to me. Of course, my bias is obviously that I am a proponent of reader response criticism, so obviously there is, obviously the word pretentious really doesn't have a lot of weight to me. So in that context, it's I just don't believe fundamentally that pretentious can really exist. It can really only be a compelling or an uncompelling analysis, or a compelling or an uncompelling argument. And in this situation, they found my argument uncompelling, and one of the reasons why they found my argument uncompelling is because the language used is very complex. But even then, the problem here is that a lot of these things have these sort of very fine conditions associated with them. They have they're laden with all of these particularities with them. And if the problem with sort of trying to get to sort of simpler language is that if you go too simple, all of a sudden you risk essentially talking about something that may or may not be the case. And two, you essentially have this issue here where the value of the word no longer has a particular weight to it that you want it. Like for instance, in that video, the term I used in particular was I used a particular term which was Sakaike, which was based upon, it's an idea that draws a lot from Lacanian psychoanalysis. In the act of using that specific word, rather than I provide a very short description of what it is, but in the act of using that particular word, what I bring along to it isn't just what it is, but also the literature that's associated with it, the debate around it, and exactly the psychoanalytical theory that it depends upon to really sort of be understood. That's what I bring with it. It's essentially a conceptual shorthand. And in that situation, I could spend 15, 20 minutes talking about Sakaike and all of its particularities and all of its conditions and requirements and its literature and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's easier for me just to use the term as it is and just sort of provide a very, very brief introduction into it. Because, I've already done that before in my Ava video. That's essentially how the literature of a word can be broken down and sort of understood. But in this ReZero video, I don't want to do that again. I shouldn't have to do that again if I've already described the literature before. So now there's this connection here. There's this connection between the word in the ReZero video and how it sort of ties back to the Ava video, and sort of how these words sort of float in this soup of language and ideas, if that makes sense.
Well, now hold on here. You're telling me that I have to, in order to appreciate your ReZero video, I have to go and watch another video to get a more in-depth understanding of the term? Oh, surely you could just put something that was in your ReZero video. You're just being lazy.
Well, I did provide a very brief description of it in my video, and in my video description, I did provide more notes and sort of a reference in my video description of the sources for my Ava video. And I'm pretty sure I did, but I left a comment in my video description saying if you want to find more information on ReZero, I do it in the Ava video.
But I mean, still, you're having other people bounce around to other content. I mean, do I really have to do this in order to be able to properly follow a video? Do I have to jump around a bunch of other videos and watch this other stuff in order to appreciate it? I mean, is there no other way to do an academic video, or is it just simply because of what's being done that you'd be retreading so much water that it just becomes way over redundant?
I think the trouble here, and I think the thing here is that when you're getting to complex ideas, you can't really sort of keep condensing them over and over again. There's a particular canonicity to works. So, like an unfortunate byproduct of this approach is simply that I have to expect that people have already considered what I've talked about in a previous video. And the reason why is because if I want to talk about something at any respectful length in regards to the complexity of the subject, I have to spend 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 minutes talking about it and its history, its literature, and sort of how it sort of plays with the ideas presented. And then in the next video, if I want to still talk about that idea, I either have one of two options. One, I have to retread the whole thing over again. Or two, I have to essentially just direct people to my previous works, and then I hope that they take a look at that particular video. Now, granted, I probably should have been more upfront in the actual video itself, because nobody seems to read my video descriptions. I probably should have been more upfront in my video itself, just saying, if you're interested, probably at the end of the video, just say, if you're interested in Sekai, well, here's a video where I talk about it in more length. That is definitely a flaw to the video and how it presented it. But I think it's sort of an unfortunate but necessary practice to expect some level of canonicity in people reading your work.
Yeah. I don't really see a problem with the whole thing of where you link content over to get a more better grasp, or just some type of thing, or just a quick thing to skim through. I remember my Cabaneri review, I tried to make this comparison with Ikoma's development as a character, and that shock and all, people that I find some development into it, but I had to make a comparison to Ange from Cross Ange, which I also did a review on that. I couldn't really explain every single thing about it. I had to get straight to the point, but if my viewers wanted to, they could go look at it. Heck, it's one of the most highest viewed reviews I made, besides From the New World. But yeah, I mostly want, or it's not wrong to suspect that your viewers are going to be video a lot of your videos, or catching up with what you made in the past or whatever. I have a long list of watch it later type thing, video list to watch other YouTubers that I watch, and then if I see a newer video, then I see oh crap, they just made some new stuff in the past, I might as well go take a look at those. And yeah, I don't see not a huge problem with it, pause. Though I think I'm viewing it in most of a content creator's perspective, not really for someone that's trying to make an analytical type thing about it, because again, it's just seeing analytical stuff like I'd like to do that, but most of the problem is time restraints from me for what I do with my work and such. Like I have a script laid out for a topic that I would want to do, but then I would have to think about, oh, like how is the delivery, what I'm going to say for it is going to be, or what clips am I going to use, or what editing style am I going to use, because like I mostly try to keep my editing like as somewhat unique as possible while also trying to take some inspiration out of it. But I think I'm just going on derailing myself when mentioning that. But Roger, when are you going to say something?
Oh, I guess
okay,
now.
then there you go. Roger said something. On to something else.
Well, it's actually a really interesting point to bring up is Roger Smith does a series of videos that I almost consider to be intellectual clickbait, where there are these really catchy and clever phrases that everybody thinks about, but they're looked at with a bit more insight that also comes from a thinking man's layman, as I kind of refer to it also, perspective. And how does something like that work, Roger Smith, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, usually it doesn't, for me, it doesn't ever feel too complex. It always feels like a very natural, simple thing. Like, either I come up with a topic, that's asked a lot around the community, and I think, do I have anything new to bring to the table here? Or are these ideas that I'm presenting, are they not heard enough in the community? Because sometimes these ideas are presented, and they are represented on, like, forums or on blogs, but how can I get these ideas to a wider audience? That's one of the big questions I ask myself. Two, some person might ask me, can you make a video on this topic? And if I have anything interesting to say that I think is different, that I think not as many people should be hearing, then I'll say it. Some people may criticize my videos for stating the obvious, but my deal is with my videos is that to them it might be the obvious thing because they know it in their head, but is it said out loud? Is it spoken in video format? And I think that's something that's very important. Like, recently I did that video on anime hype, and someone had criticized me saying that I was ripping off Giguk. And I watched Giguk's video, and while we did tread some similar ground, the topic of the video at face value was the same, but deep down there were a lot of differences between the two, especially in regards to what we were talking about with hype. And the fact that while he did define hype, just like I did in the video, he used one definition, whereas I used a second definition as well on top of that, which also added to a different point I was making. So while I may take these topics that everyone's talked about, everyone knows, and some people may say, it's common sense, to a lot of people, they don't really give it thought. They don't really pay it any mind. And my videos are sort of to bring attention to those thoughts, bring attention to those ideas. And if I'm successful at it, good. If I'm not, try again and hope that I'm successful the next time. But I think I've had a pretty good track record, and I hope people agree with me on that.
People compared you to Giguk's hype video? Really? Like,
yes.
It's not just about, like, the copying the whole
did.
thing. I agree with you, Roger, because you probably brought something a whole lot different to the table about that whole thing, because with Giguk, his style about talking about these certain topics is a lot of different. Seems way more different compared to what you do. Like, when I remember watching your video about anime reviewers, like, being bad, or was it not good enough? I'm not sure. But from you already have a different style, so that was stupid for someone to be comparing you to Giguk. Besides, like, in my opinion, Giguk does it in more accessible ways. Though you're trying to, like, be more accessible and that type of stuff. So maybe something you can look up to. But yeah, just wow, can't believe people make that weird comparison.
Well, Giguk is more humor based.
Exactly.
His stuff is to be funny while also providing a point, and my stuff is kind of just more about providing a point. I don't really try to shoehorn in humor, though sometimes.
I like that out of you more than mostly Giguk. Though we're not doing a whole dick measuring contest between you two or anything like that or whatever. But this might bring up this now. Actually, you guys were mostly talking about, like, each other and that type of stuff. Anything about me? Because I'm kind of curious what negativity or, like, what constructive criticisms you can give to me. Like, other than pause, like, I know you subscribe to my stuff, but you mostly subscribe just to look at a few unboxings. Well, I hate to tell you, though, with how much problem I'm having with money, I won't have an unboxing for, like, quite some time. So, what about me?
Yeah, I've only seen your unboxing videos, so I don't really know what else to say.
It's just the way you worded it too. You was like, it's so nice seeing your perspective and that type of stuff, unboxing this or whatever, or something like that. And I was like, wow, all through that. Well,
Last saw one of your videos last year.
I think unboxing videos are phenomenal.
They are, though. I mean, that's the thing, though, is especially with anime collections. Roger Smith and I both know this. We mainly bought anime in an era where, you know, you're paying $30 a DVD, and if you're going to collect a set, you want to kind of know how it is, what it comes with, and so forth. I mean, that was the meat of it. I remember I was working at Suncoast, and I started working there, and there was a pre-order for a box set called Nautical Blitz Tactics, and it had W/panties. And I was looking at it going, I don't know what this is, but I'm ordering it, because what the hell? And it came with a set of panties. So, I mean, no,
the funny thing is, one of Funimation's newest box sets are you talking about that? Like, literally, there's, like, some type of weird, like, sex item to be had in the new set of Shima Meta. I don't know how to pronounce it. Some type of, like, sexual...
Oh,
yeah,
Shimonetta?
some type of sexual terrorism anime or whatever it's called. Like, literally, it's all sexual terrorism. But I don't want to go off topic about that, but... Yeah, like, I'm kind of having this problem with the actor that was Wolverine in the X-Men, where, like, people just see me as, the unboxing guy and that type of stuff. Though I want to try to grow more into reviewing and maybe a little analytical stuff, but I kind of have a long way to go, which makes me want to jump to this specific topic about analytical anime reviewers, and about how fast or slow do you think they're going to be growing in comparison to the rest of the anime community in their types of content, like of episode and chapter reviews, or snob reviews, or... other things, really.
Should I go?
Go nuts!
I think that in terms of analytical content, the scope is only going to get wider. It's only going to get bigger. We have more analytical YouTubers coming into the forefront, more new ones. We recently got some talented folks like our friends, The Pedantic, Romantic, and Sent Anime Stuff, who put out fantastic content. And we also have a lot of bigger YouTubers like Jeff Thu, of course, Mother's Basement, getting larger, and it's in turn inspiring more people to get into analysis. And we also have, outside of anime, we have Every Frame is a Painting, who's... damn, is loud as hell. Outside of the anime community, we have Every Frame is a Painting, who... pretty much inspired a lot of people in the Anitube community. RC Anime definitely is very Every Frame a Painting inspired. So I think analysis is just going to get bigger. How long will it be before... How long will it be before analysis, like, takes over? I don't think it'll ever completely take over. I always think there'll be a place for other kinds of content on YouTube. I always think top listers will still be huge. I still think episode chapter reviewers will still be huge. I think that they'll just all coexist. Sort of like what we have now, except with more.
Well, my question was mostly about how fast or slow the content will be growing and that type of thing. And I think it's going to start growing. It's growing a little bit of a slow pace. Sure, you got the big ones like Mother's Basement and those other people. I'm surprised Life is a Painting is even a channel name, but... I think there might be a border or like some type of roadblock for people to mostly enjoy it. I'm not asking for you to change anything. None of that at all. I'm just stating what's probably a problem for certain viewers. Like, I went to this channel Awesome Person, some person off the guy with glasses, or the Nostalgia Critics channel Awesome. He's called Animerica, and he does these ridiculously long, like, not really analytical, but it's a mix of that along with trying to be like a poor unfortunate soul looking at a bad anime title like F A Tale of Memories or Cyanide, and there's like 25 parts in that video, and within the time frames of those videos, they're like to 10 to 30 minutes, going through every single time stamp, every single scene, every single line, every single frame, all the sorts. And it's just, sure, he might not be entirely analytical on it, but he has parts of it that make him analytical. And there's maybe other analytical people that would want to have a super long video to try to indulge every single piece of thing that they probably have in their head about a certain scene, a certain dialogue, a certain anime title that they have for it. But unless if you're someone like me that would watch these types of stuff, mostly just to like turn my brain off a tiny bit while still trying to talk about your points, but I would mostly use it as for like stuff to like edit videos, or it's like kind of like podcast videos and that type of stuff. Like maybe you're probably watching it to actually talk with someone, or you're using it to pass the time, or like when you're in a facility or something like that. Do you think that's kind of a problem?
Well, I think part of the analysis community is that in spite of it being complex, which makes it inaccessible, in turn, that makes it slightly more accessible to those making it. Because essentially, when it comes to analytical content, you look at pause and select. Many people may say that because his lexicon is so varied and so large that his content as a result is a lot more inaccessible. But I think that in turn, what he's doing is so different from what other people in the anime community are doing is part of why he's also as popular as he is. In essence, the difference between one's own channel and then another anime YouTuber's channel, while it can make their content less accessible, at the same time, gives it more attention because it's different from everything else. If there were 50 channels like Pause and Select that do very hard, very academic anime work on YouTube, I get a feeling Joe might have a harder time breaking through here. But because Pause and Select stuff is so different, that's part of what allows him to grow as well as he has been.
Yeah, I would echo that as well. It's actually been really remarkable if you look at when he started the transition from what he did, which was live reaction videos, to the more analytical and academic based. There's been a substantial amount of growth. Discord servers he'll go into, various people will be like, "Oh, hey, cool, could you talk more about this or tell me more about this?" And someone else will be listening and they'll go, "Wow, that's really cool. I didn't know about that." It's sort of almost a contagious thing where there's people out there that do want to know more. They want to learn more. The anime community is full of a lot of intelligent individuals who want to transcend their knowledge beyond what the base level is. And I feel that you've got channels of people like DigiBro who kind of give a nice middle ground between that, and then you sort of have the next level. So you've got sort of like the high school teacher DigiBro, and then you've got the college professor, Pause and Select. So it's the same way it does for normal academics, where you just kind of continue to go up the chain, and it kind of provides a nice stepping stone. And especially considering the fact that Pause and Select does a book club, and this isn't trying to plug it, but I think it's really cool. There's a book club where you can read the material that he's reading, and you could discuss it. It helps really understand it to where even a simpleton like myself can look at it and go, "Oh, I get that. That makes sense." Even if some of it initially I'm like, "That's gibberish. You're saying a bunch of nothing. I don't even know what you're saying." Pretty sure those aren't even words.
What about you, Pause? Anything to add?
Anything to add?
I agree with both Roger and Michael's take on this in regards to that. It sort of reminds me of, I guess you can sort of say, sort of a Miltonian idea of, sort of a Miltonian metaphor of an idea marketplace, where channels themselves, they sort of stand for specific things in specific ways, and people are looking for specific things in specific ways, and there's a sort of a supply and demand for them. And I agree with Roger into that the analytical anime community, while it is a little more difficult to get into than than the review community, or the live or I guess the live reactors, or the chapter reviews and so on and so forth. I do think that it's easier to set a foothold within that community, because I think this specific community, you really only have a small number of people who would consider themselves, in the purest form, anime analysts on YouTube, who have a lot of subs. You really would. There's very few of them who would self-identify as that. And the rest of them really don't self-identify as that. And so they sort of exist within their own sort of communities that sort of tendril between other communities and so on and so forth. So I think if you're interested in getting into the anime analysis community, this is an absolutely phenomenal time to get into it. Now, of course, your work patterns and the content type that you have to put out is going to be a lot different, but I agree with Roger and Michael. I don't know where I was going with this, other than saying I agree with both of them.
You went somewhere that pleased me on that whole topic for it. I had I found like some type of idea for something like, I'll just give out the topic, even though I don't have the thing uploaded or anything like that. Or I haven't even started editing. It's about the concept of like framing and that type of stuff, because like, you might have your thing of, like, reading novels and literature and that type of stuff and having comparisons over to anime titles. What I like to analyze is the framing of titles, where you look at the rule of thirds, you look at the characters' positions, you see how the camera pans and moves to have these characters be positioned into a different area to show a different light into how the characters act and react without saying a single piece of dialogue. That is, like, or when they're talking, and then you can see the position of where the characters are, so you can, like, predict what they're going to be saying and all that type of stuff. It's just, you're, like, looking through a looking glass, and then you can just see how, like, the series will turn out. Like, one of the examples I was going to mention is with Parasite, during the talk with Ryoko and Shinichi and A at that specific scene. Like, once I have the video out, I'll be able to explain a lot more. Or the thing where Dio and Jotaro are going to be walking towards each other, and just how Jotaro is in the right of frame, going to the left, and the left of the frame is supposed to represent the start or the beginning and that type of thing. So he's walking over to the left of frame, presumably to where Dio is, where he's standing left of frame as well. He's the start. He started all of this, and he's going to be facing off the, like, big baddie that started it all, while Dio is going to the far right to represent conclusion. So then he's going to end the Joestar line by defeating Jotaro. And just how it was shot and framed was just so great and so badass, I should say, for JoJo. And do you think that's a little bit weird of me, analyzing frames kind of like that?
No, it's perfectly fine.
No. Actually, there's a YouTuber, Goat Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
Goat Jesus combines both psychology as well as, obviously, he does filming himself. He's a director. He's working on a storyboard as well with Honest Phil. They're doing an entire animation project, which is huge. So yeah, that's not weird in the slightest. There is a demand for that, and it's shown with things like Every Frame a Painting and other people like Pause and not Pause and Select, Red Letter Media.
Oh, I love Red Letter.
Jeez, I don't know why I'm saying Pause and Select. I can't stop talking about you. But yeah, Red Letter Media, there's a demand for that, and I definitely think that's great to do. And you can never have too many different perspectives.
I just think for an analytical thing, that seems probably the most complicated, or something that even viewers will find a hard thing to grasp for, because I don't know, like, I do understand people's criticism. It's just like, you're seeing how a shot's played out, but yet you're told, like, just mostly some anime that I see, it's a mix of visual, it's like usually just talk and not show that much, but then I see some frames where it's like they're talking at least, but they have the characters' positions where, like, Shinichi was, like, being kind of a prejudice, but then slowly, like, moving himself toward middle of a frame to, like, show his position being questioned and challenged or something like that. And it's a very complicated thing. That's probably the thing. It's so complicated for me to bring this thing out. And I think it's probably due to just how I act and that type of sort of thing. So I just think for now, I'm just going to be just continuing working on, like, reviews, simple reviews, and maybe further along the line that maybe try to do something more complex to try to do analytical stuff. But as what Pause said, it's about the issue with workflow, and what I'm mostly doing right now is kind of a hard time doing, like, analytical stuff. Sure, it's going to be simpler to edit, because, like, good lord, I'm not going to have to be cutting so much stuff, but it's the biggest challenge for me. Speaking of speaking of workload and that type of stuff, we can segue over to this specific topic about like crazy workload stories that I wanted to talk about, because for ones that I mentioned, it's about the issues with work, or it's about issues with talking with YouTubers, or trying to work with stuff on After Effects. Yes, I use the Adobe programs, that type of stuff. What editing softwares do you use? Like, pause. Do you use Premiere Pro and something else?
I use Premiere Pro, and I've slowly been getting into After Effects.
Oh, yes. Once you get into After Effects, sure, it's a big challenge to enter into, but I took a quick class for it. Then I've been self-teaching myself ever since. Like, I was able to figure out the whole Podtaku effect where they used for the lighting of a certain highlight over avatars and that type of stuff. You just got to keyframe the audio for it. And what about you, Cyanide? Do you use any specific fancy editing?
Yeah, my trade is graphic design, so when I went to school, I learned the entire Adobe suite, which I have the entire Adobe suite, so yeah, but I don't really need to use everything, so I just mostly use Illustrator, Photoshop, and Premiere Pro, but I'm starting to tinker around with After Effects a bit more, so it's kind of trying to relearn everything that I learned before in school, so it's a bit of a process.
Yeah. A funny story is that in school we were taught to learn with, what was it called? It was some type of dumb editing software. It wasn't Final Cut. It wasn't Final Cut. It was something else, because like supposedly after the whole industry with like Apple decided to make Final Cut Pro be casual, so then they had to find different operating softwares for video editing, and oh man, I wish I remember, but it was a terrible software. And the funny thing was before learning that video editing software, I was self-teaching myself Premiere Pro. Like, I was taught in school for Photoshop and Illustrator and After Effects, but not for Premiere Pro. And funny thing is, after that class was over, the next class I had to take, they gave up on that old editing software, and they were going to be embracing Adobe Premiere Pro. So all that stuff was just for nothing. And I just look at that and just wasting so much time on that type of thing. But enough about me. What about you, Roger? What type of editing do you use? Editing software do you use?
I use Audacity, and I use Sony Vegas. I wanted to get into Adobe, but it's kind of like I used a bit of the program last year in class. We all used Adobe, but I'm not a huge fan of the steep learning curve, but I know that when I do learn like the full program, it is going to make my videos look a lot more nicer, and that's kind of what I want. I want better production values as I continue.
That's what I'm also trying to do too. Like, even though like I'm trying to tone down on the After Effects stuff for it, I try to counter with that or try to balance it out with a lot of quicker edits, a lot more faster cuts in Premiere Pro to make it, I don't know, just so like people would not notice like, oh, that's a long drawn shot that I just saw from episode blank, time frame, blah 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 for full 20 seconds. Like sometimes I would mess with like for the for also certain scenes like the bro shake that was in episode 2 with Ikoma and Takumi. I wanted to make an After Effects thing out of that, and just some of it I also try to do it in improv. Also for my Adobe stuff, I use Premiere Pro, Photoshop, Illustrator. I'm also trying to do speed grade and prelude for some better lighting to be used, or lighting correction, but that's for like live action stuff for me, and I haven't did live action in a while. Like, good lord, like maybe when I do a collections update, I'll probably do that. And I'm just surprised that no one's using Audition yet. Like, I thought like just people are using Audacity and that type of stuff. I used Audacity, I couldn't stand it, but then when I spent like $20 a month for Audition, I never went back. Like, sure, there's Pro Tools, but that's also a steep thing to use, and plus you gotta use XLR cables and all that type of stuff if you want the best performance out of Pro Tools. Like with Audition, I can easily do USB stuff just fine. But do you have any challenges when it comes to making certain analytical videos or making certain content, like say First Impression Cyanide, like with scheduling for people and such? Because I'll have to say this out, you invited me over to do an impression, but due to whole workload for me, I just had an issue and such.
Well, for myself, that mostly was my fault because I did two things that were very spur-of-the-moment type situations. I normally like to schedule things and plan out in advance and talk to people to get things down to make sure. And if things happen, that happens. That's not a big deal at all. I can easily reschedule. But yeah, no, normally I plan around that. Like I try to record on the weekend and I space things out to certain times of the day, plan out certain times. So I just actually incorporate part of the scheduling that I usually do for my actual job, my actual work, and I just apply aspects of it to my channel. So, I mean, I do it for fun, but at the same time, certain aspects I still handle like a job. So it's kind of a weird in between.
I understand that. What about you, Pause?
Based upon my content type, the biggest obstacle is failure. So that's literally the biggest one.
Understandable. Understandable. What about you, Roger?
Like the biggest problem I have?
Oh yeah, like any challenge. Like for me, it's making the script. It's for then trying to figure out what B footage to use, and then what pictures I'll need to Photoshop to edit out and such. And also figuring out what effects to use, because I just self-taught myself just recently in After Effects how to use motion tracker, and that was a godsend ever since. But what about you, Roger? Like, do you have any similar type of issues?
Well, it depends mostly on the video. Some videos, the script is more of a problem of conveying what I want to convey without people, trying to chirp me in the comments or any of that. Sometimes it's like compiling the clips. Like, I don't mind editing too much, but getting those clips together, if it's like a big video with like a lot of things going on, like my filler video, where I had to like include like 10 different shows, that can be a bit annoying. But like, most of the time, my stuff is pretty simple to do, because I usually take a lot of time to think about what I'm gonna write before I write it. So, like, a lot of my earlier videos, not so much like my last few ones, but like a lot of my earlier ones and like a few more recent ones, I've written and edited and uploaded all in the span of a day. So it just depends on the video. Some are more easy to write than others, some are more easy to make than others. Like, big analytical videos usually take me either a lot of time, or they don't take me any time because I've thought the idea out so much that it's just a matter of writing it and editing it and to be done with it. But it depends. Recording also takes a long time too, because my house, my like area can get really noisy. There's a lot of like really loud trucks. So I have to account for that, and sometimes my microphone acts up on me, so I need to make sure about that too.
Speak of the devil, a truck just passed by across my house. You sure you didn't bring that truck over here?
I might have.
Shame.
But my cat just keeps tapping on the door.
Cats! Oh god. There was one. Oh, my cat, Louie. She's now knowing how to open the door, like with the knob and such. And oh my god. And I have this $250 leather chair, so cats should stay away, or they're gonna get declawed as soon as they put one claw on there. Though enough of the tangent about that I was mentioning, I kind of, basically, there's a big challenge for anyone out there that wants to try to be an analytical person, but I don't think there should be a problem if someone like me or other people that like don't really do like the analytical type content, because people are just gonna watch what they want to watch. Like, even though there's marketers out there that try to find ways to get new people that just can't like understand or just are curious about that whole thing, they would still want to stick to something that would probably really want to enjoy. And I think that's probably it. Like, really enjoy like sometimes more of the reviewing, more of the comedy stuff. But sooner or later, I want to try to like get into analytical and probably watch some more of your analytical stuff, Pause and Select and Roger, and see if you would probably do some stuff, Cyanide. But I think that's just going to take some time that I might not have, or time that I might have if stuff goes right with me, involving my trying to find the perfect job for me to work on more YouTube content. And I'm really sorry for like having this big as big of a hiatus as like Kentaro Miura like trying to be a pro at Idolmaster, oh my lord.
He keeps trying, but they keep releasing new
speaking of-
games, so he's never going to get there.
Or he's getting a worse, or he's getting pulled back to keep working on that CGI Berserk travesty. Good lord. But with that out of the way, I don't want to like drag this out anymore. This was a really nice talk with you guys, and I hope we could talk more sooner or later, though I'm not sure about that. But and probably talk about a little bit more stuff that's probably a little bit more I don't know, more upbeat than the whole thing with Pause just saying more like fancy words. Oh dear lord, I think I might just make a counter and it'll be, or a drinking game every time you say like this like advanced word or anything like that. I'm sorry. But yeah, that is probably also, I can probably let you guys go, leave the Legion right now, but at least say all your names and contact information before you go. Let's start with you, C.
Well, I'm Cyanide Blizzard. I enjoy long walks on the beach and holding hands. I also have a fondness for kittens. I run a little channel that does first impressions. Simply search Cyanide Blizzard first impressions in the thingamabib on the YouTube whatchamacallit, and you will find probably me. Maybe.
We're chibi.
Or Chibi.
Definitely chibi.
Yes.
Podle Chibi. And then the P.
Yeah, you can just find me on YouTube under Pause and Select. If you type in Pause and Select in YouTube search, I should show up. I think you'll find my Konosuba review. So that's pretty much the easiest way to find me.
And Smith. Just Smith.
You can find me on YouTube, RogerSmith2004. Do not look me up on Twitter as RogerSmith2004. That's not my account. I've been trying to get that account taken down. They're posing as me. They're not me. But on YouTube, RogerSmith2004, you should find the guy with the Hige avatar, and that'll be me.
How would they impersonate you? Like, how can you impersonate, like, what do you think of a good impersonation of you, Roger?
It was a bad impersonation.
Like, just depend on how they type. It's like, the grammar would have to be, or I don't know.
The topic manner was completely different.
God. But...
like, they were typing all political stuff.
Oh, that makes me think of what president they support, which candidate. Oh, no. I don't want to go with that. I don't want to go to that approach. Anyway, go now. Be free. This has been the Aspie Anime Addict, leader of the Legion of Anime Addicts, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to make more stuff for you later as soon as I get some work, and I'm not stressed out as hell, because I'm fed up with this. Ciao!
See ya.
Sayonara, bye-bye.